you know, this is a demand that has to be put forward not only by me, the Prime Minister of Israel, but by anyone who wants peace. Everybody should turn to President Abbas and say what I said today in Congress: tear up your pact with Hamas. Sit down and negotiate peace. Make peace with the Jewish state.
This is recent, though, and it's obviously problematic because you've got, if you described a very small landmass, and you know you're dealing with Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran, and
it's a tough neighborhood. Let me tell you.
It's a tough neighborhood. I think you were very, very clear in all of that. If they do not recognize Israel, if that recognition does not come, peace cannot come.
That's right. Well, that's what the Americans say too.
Yes.
The formal American position is they've got to recognize the state of Israel about Hamas, and they've got to give up terror. They say, since signing this initial pact with the Palestinian Authority, we're never going to recognize Israel. We're committed to the obliteration of the Zionist entity, and we'll continue the armed struggle. You know what that is? That's a polite term for terrorism.
Sure.
In the meantime, they're putting into Gaza about 10,000 rockets, which they fire on us. They've already fired 6,000 rockets on us. They're amassing more. So they're not a partner for peace. I don't think anybody listening to us and anybody in Washington, any fair-minded viewer or observer of the Middle East would really expect Israel to do this, and they don't. I mean, fair-minded governments don't expect that. But I think it was important that this was said by President Obama. I think that's very, very important.
And coming up, Terror TV. You won't believe what kind of sick stuff that kids are being exposed to by Arab television's so-called children's programming. And then imagine living in the middle of a demolition zone and being told, well, you had to move to make way for a rich developer. Ainsley Earhart, she heads to New Jersey for an exclusive report that just might make you mad. Plus, Joe Montana, Sarah Evans, and much more. All right, it's no secret that people in many Mideast countries have a deep-seated hatred for the United States and Israel, but you may be shocked to know just how many people get to feel that way. Now, the propaganda and indoctrination starts very young, and filmmaker and attorney Brooke Goldstein is the founder and the director of the Children's Rights Institute, and she's been monitoring some of the children's television programs in Arab countries, programming like this. So the idea of indoctrinating kids into jihad and martyrdom, I mean, this is something that has happened in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Libya, Somalia. This is very common.
Absolutely. You have Muslim children throughout the globe that are being targeted through the internet, through satellite programming, by their religious clerics, by their political leaders, to kill themselves as suicide bombers. And it's nothing but a form of child abuse.
Well, of course. All right, let's go to the one where they use Mickey Mouse. I believe this is by Hamas.
This is a Hamas TV clip.
Hamas TV clip. Roll this tape.
وكانت لنا حضارة وكان للمسلمين العزة والكرامة.
ونحن رواد الغد سنعيد لهذه الأمة مجدها وسنحرر الأقصى إن شاء الله وسنحرر العراق إن شاء الله وسنحرر بلاد المسلمين التي
بدك تجيبوا فرفور نسيبوا لناس مجرمين لناس إنتاج لناس إرهابية إحنا أندال إحنا إرهابية فرفور
قد استشهد فرفور وهو يدافع عن أرضه.
It's almost inconceivable.
Yeah, and where's Disney enforcing their copyright and trademark? They didn't release a peep when this happened.
Why do you think that is?
Well, maybe it's too controversial to condemn child abuse against Muslim children. I'm not quite sure.
It really is child abuse, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's brainwashing kids and taking over their minds. And I assume that those kids that are involved in these videos are rewarded as great warriors, you know, and so there's some reinforcement to this brainwashing.
Yes, you know, and the Palestinian Authority, for example, has a policy where they name summer camps and schools after dead terrorists. The Palestinian Authority also has PATV, and guess who provides them with billions of dollars everywhere? The United States government. And we do that without conditioning funding that it doesn't go towards incitement to violence. You could make the argument that Americans are aiding and abetting the murder of innocent Palestinian children by funding the PA.
Yeah. All right. Now, we've got a Pakistan video that actually recreates a suicide bombing mission. It's really frightening.
Yes, and the Taliban issued a special statement congratulating the people who released that video. You have a serious problem right now in Pakistan where thousands of Muslim children are being kidnapped by the Taliban. They're being educated in madrasas. They're being driven across borders. They're being detonated by remote control. And again, where are human rights organizations? Where's Human Rights Watch?
Why do you think there is this reluctance and resistance to take on radical Islam? There's a few of us that do.
Let me tell you something.
And there's widespread condemnation, and we make the distinction between Islam and radical Islam. But it seems that, you know, there's utter silence with something that contemptible and abusive of children. And I don't understand the silence.
There is nothing Islamophobic about advocating for the human rights of innocent Muslim children. They do not deserve to be taught to kill themselves for the sake of jihad. And turning a blind eye to this phenomenon is only sending the green light to terrorists that they can continue their actions with impunity.
All right, now we have another video here where a Lebanese imam, they're created to influence the hearts and minds of Shiite children and adolescents and radicalize them towards hate and violence. Here it is once again.
أنا بفضل حمل السلاح عن المدرسة طبعا. ليش؟ لأنه بسلاحي بقدر أرد أرض فلسطين، ولما أرد أرض فلسطين بقدر أتعلم. إذا تعلمت وما حملت السلاح مش رح أقدر إنه رح أخسر الشغلة. لا بفضل إنه أحمل سلاحي لأكسر الشغلتين. الفرق بين المدرسة إنه المدرسة ما بيعلمونا كيف إنه بكرة كيف بدنا نروح نحرر فلسطين وهيك. بيعلمونا إنه كتب وهيك بس.
What are they, you know, they are preparing these kids to sacrifice their entire lives by having indoctrinated them that virgins await them in heaven and all of this nonsense. And parents, I've seen in interviews, when their children do things like this, they couldn't be prouder.
Right, you know, and Hezbollah also runs the Imam Mahdi Scouts. They have over 42,000 children. They are teaching them how to become child soldiers. They've bragged that 120 of their children have died as suicide bombers and as soldiers working with Hezbollah. But make no mistake, this isn't just limited to the Islamic world. Satellite companies like Noorsat, Arabsat, and Eutelsat, which is French-based, have been broadcasting the same hate propaganda. Right now, iTunes is carrying an app called Birds of Paradise. Birds of Paradise is a children's choir that sings songs like When We Die as Martyrs. These are easily accessible here in the West as well.
A chilling report. We really appreciate you being with us. Thank you.
Thank you for the exposure.
And still ahead, imagine having the government telling you that you need to move, and then all the homes around you are demolished, including ones attached to your very house. That's the nightmare that some New Jersey homeowners are now living through. Ainsley Earhart reports. And welcome back to the special edition of Hannity. Now, more and more, we are hearing stories about local governments using the threat of eminent domain to push people out, all in the name of higher taxes. Now, Ainsley Earhart headed out to New Jersey, where she found a bunch of hardworking homeowners living a nightmare.
The area known as the Gardens in Mount Holly, New Jersey, sometimes looks more like a demolition zone or an abandoned lot than a neighborhood. But Santos Cruz lives right in the middle of it.
This is your house?
Yes, this is my home right here.
And how long have you lived here?
I've lived here 19 years. I rented for one and then I bought it.
The American dream.
Also, I was told.
More than 1,000 people lived in the Gardens, which for years was a large cluster of 300 row homes in the southern New Jersey township.
I've lived here since 1987, so that's going on 25 years. A single mom. I raised 5 children here.
But more than 10 years ago, town officials decided to bring in a private developer to revitalize the area.
The township decided that they were going to give my property to a rich developer so he can develop it and make more money. 2
days before Christmas, they sent me a letter stating that this is the offer they're giving me and I have to take it or else they're going to proceed with eminent domain.
This neighborhood was in very bad shape, and the township has been working over these years to try to come up with a number of different plans to rehabilitate it, and finally it was determined that there was going to have to be a new neighborhood created.
Using the threat of eminent domain, Mount Holly officials are buying up for lowballed offers and tearing down these row homes one by one, oftentimes while they're still attached to occupied homes, causing irreparable damage.
So this was part of the house that was next door.
They just left that, and look, they left the back of it too, so that I guess to match it. And look, there's no sidewalks either. They took out the sidewalks.
If I walked down the streets in this New Jersey neighborhood several years ago, you would have seen children out here playing. You would have seen families still living in these row houses. But now you see vacant lots like this one after the township came in with bulldozers, but you still have a few residents here that refuse to leave.
I worked hard all my life for what I do have. I worked hard for it, and now they're gonna come and tell me I have to go.
We picked this area, we picked it. We did our research, saw that the schools were good, the stores were closed, and we picked living here. Why should we be ousted because somebody else with more money wants our property?
Eminent domain is the power of the government to seize private property for things like roads and schools, traditional public uses. But the U.S. Supreme Court has stripped the meaning of public use from the Constitution to basically mean anything that might potentially benefit the public.
Is it fair to buy something and then have it taken away from you? I mean, they're not building a road here. They're not building a school. If they were building a road and a school, we would understand.
In this case, it's going to be to build a better neighborhood for a wealthier clientele, and that's the neighbor's complaint.
Well, we have purchased 230 homes over the last 10 years. We have yet to use eminent domain once.
Township officials are offering the remaining residents half of how much it would cost to buy a comparable home just 3 blocks away. And the developer refuses to offer these homeowners replacement housing in his new development.
If you've seen the prices of homes nowadays, they're giving you a bag of peanuts and telling you to go buy a house. The only one that I know could do that is Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk, because that's about the only one. All we're getting is a bag of beans and a dream. Go move somewhere else.
The town argues they're offering more than is required by law to those who choose to relocate.
The township has been providing them with $35,000 over the value of their home.
But the problem is, at this point, the value of these half-demolished homes is close to zero.
I understand that the way this neighborhood has become, we're not going to be able to stay the way it is. I mean, my house is literally glued together, you know. But I'm fighting this for like the principle of the thing.
With the help of the Institute for Justice, the remaining residents have gotten a court injunction to prevent the town from moving forward with eminent domain. Now this case sits in the U.S. Third Circuit Court of Appeals in the hands of a judge. And the residents who are left can only wait and try to go about their normal lives as the community disappears around them.